on page 93 in our ABCs of Christian Maturity booklet. You know, that means we're moving along pretty. I didn't even realize 93 is a pretty good long way along. We're almost halfway through the first book. First book's 206 pages, so Lord willing, we'll be halfway through here in about 2 weeks. Praise the Lord. I wasn't even thinking that letter F's not halfway through the alphabet. It's like maybe almost a quarter of the way. But so here we are on page 93, financial freedom. He's got a lot of stuff written here. I'm going to read a bunch and comment a little bit. The numbers aren't all going to match. I looked up some numbers and I have them updated. One number I didn't look up to update is the population that's on here. I put 300 million. It might be a little more or a little less than that. I'm not sure, but we'll get into that. What's your page say? Second paragraph, population. 315 million. Okay, well, that's fine. And I also didn't put how many credit cards. So I'll ask you guys for that. So we'll go on through. So there is a plague afflicting this nation which threatens to enslave it. It is an epidemic, out of control debt, or an epidemic of out of control debt, ranging from the staggering national debt to the overwhelming personal debt. Hundreds of thousands of people are in literal financial bondage, much of which has resulted from an addiction to consumer credit. In the United States of America, population, we said 315 as of the writing that he had there. It's probably 320, somewhere around there. There are over how many credit cards? 700 million credit cards, plus countless store, gas, and phone cards being used to obtain just about everything, including the necessities of life, food and clothing, as mentioned in I must not have put that down, huh? Yep, guess not. I think I started my notes on the verses on the next page, but our memory verse for those of you that want to memorize that, hopefully all of you, is 1 Timothy 6:10. It says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. I'm probably going to hit that verse a few times through the lesson here. So it says non-promotional interest rates in these cards generally range from, and what's it say on yours? Okay, 14 to 24%. I have seen higher than that, 29%, 30-something%. You got one that's 28. That's some high interest rates. What's that? 24. There you go. So anybody have anything below 14? I have an introductory one that's 0. But anyways, I know we're all like boasting about our credit cards, but we're all going to be hanging our heads low by the time we get through this. So it says, and are occupied by substantial penalties for charging over the limit or making late payments. It says about 17%. Is that what it says on yours? About 17% of all disposable household income in the country goes to make payments on consumer credit debt. The credit card delinquency rate ranges from, what's it say on yours? 3 to 4%. At a time of declared economic prosperity. Of course, that's what it says on mine. I don't know if it was economic prosperity when you printed those. Was it? Is that what it says? Okay. We're not really in at least we're not declared to be in a recession or a depression or anything like that, but we still have delinquency and all of these things. So the average American family carries over, and I looked this up, as of 2015, the average American family carries over $15,355 in credit card debt. The average American family, $15,000. The total credit card debt for all Americans is $712 billion. $712 billion in credit card debt for all of Americans. And so average is 15,355. I got this information and I didn't write it down where I got it. It was on something. Man, I thought I would. What's that? No, there was a site that deals with something about Angry Wallet or something. I can't remember now, but it had to do with budgeting and finances and stuff, and they looked up the statistics, I guess, and they were referencing some other statistical thing. So, well, he doesn't give his references, so I guess I don't have to either, right? I'm just kidding. So, that's in addition to mortgages, auto loans, student loans, department store debt, and so on. Now, I'm going to give you some of those numbers real quick. He says in 1996, and what's it say for you guys? Is it 1996 there? In 2000, and is it about nonprofit debt? Counseling agencies met with almost 1 million people. Okay, almost 2 million, with an average debt of around what? $43,000. That's outside of your mortgage, I'm sure. And it says, yet for all this, most American mailboxes continually receive regular offers for pre-approved credit cards. Now, here's some other numbers that I looked up. Mortgages, the average mortgage, or the average size mortgage for the average American is $165,892. The total mortgages right now is $8.12 trillion in mortgages for our country. 8.12 trillion. That's a bunch of money. Bunch of debt. What's that? Yeah. Auto loans. The average auto loan of the average American is $26,530. The average auto loan. The total auto loan debt right now for all Americans, or as of the time that they did the statistics last year, was 1.03 trillion in auto loan debt. Student loans. That's a fun one, huh? Yeah. And you know, Colonel Sanders wants to get rid of all that debt, just like wipe it away. You know, don't worry about the fact that like somebody paid that money. You know, they just want to say, nobody has to pay their debts. We'll just forget it. Anyways, I don't want to get on side trail, but 1.2, or what's that? That, you know, right. Well, you know, rabbit trails are important sometimes. We got to get those bunnies. If not, you know, they reproduce, and then you have a whole room full of bunnies. What's that? Bunnies can be dangerous. But now we're having a rabbit trail about rabbit trails. Isn't that wonderful? So, student loan debt. Listen to this, the average student loan debt for Americans is $47,712. $47,000 student loan debt. And so for all Americans, the student loan debt is higher than mortgages. I'm not sure how that 47,000 and you know all of that works out. No, it's not higher than mortgages. My bad. I moved the decimal point. It's 1.21 trillion, but it's higher than auto loans. There's more money owed for student loans than there are for auto loans. So all debt, the average American has $129,579 in debt. There's 11.91 trillion, almost $12 trillion of debt, and that's not the national debt. That's the nation's debt added up. So you add the national debt to the nation's debt, and we have somewhere around almost $100 trillion in debt. Or no, I guess almost 50 trillion. Somewhere around. What's our national debt right now? Like 19 trillion or something, or somewhere around it. What's that? Yeah, is that what it is? About 19 trillion. So 19 trillion plus another 12 trillion, you're pushing 40 something, or 30, what, 30, well, 31 trillion. So yeah, that's a bunch of debt, a bunch of debt. So he says, according to the Bible, insolvency resulted in drastic action. And I don't have these verses down because for some reason, I didn't start putting the verses down until the next page. Matthew 18, 25 and 2 Kings 4:1 talks about that. It says, today the usual and now virtually acceptable way to solve a debt problem is to declare bankruptcy by means of either a Chapter 7, which is a petition which discharges personal debt through the liquidation or sell-off of one's assets, or a Chapter 13, which is a petition which allows for the reorganizing of personal finances in order to establish a payment plan. During the Great Depression, 1 in 215 Americans declared bankruptcy. Does he have a newer thing here? I have 1995. Did he? Okay, in 1995, the rate was 1 in 225. Is that right? Okay. I have 1997. What do you have for 2009? So in 2009, there were 1.47 million bankruptcy petitions filed in the United States federal courts, but all but how many? 78,000 of which are non-business or personal. Yeah, that's some big numbers. Hopefully nobody here's filed for bankruptcy. Hopefully nobody here ever has to, or ever. I would just say it's not a matter of has to. It's like a matter of we don't want that. That's not something. I don't think that's something a Christian should really even consider as a possibility. But we'll get into all that. So, although bankruptcy protection offers a quote fresh start for the one in debt, it remains on one's record forever. Although credit reporting agencies are generally prohibited from reporting it after 10 years. It may be 7 in some states, but 10 years in general. And it doesn't deal with the real problem. Declaring bankruptcy doesn't deal with the real problem. If you don't change the reason you became bankrupt, then you'll be bankrupt again. Furthermore, bankruptcy and bad debt also seriously affect the livelihood of many innocent people and businesses. For example, when you declare bankruptcy, I just had a renter declare bankruptcy, our previous renter, and she says, I'm moving out. Sorry, declaring bankruptcy. I'll put the lease into bankruptcy as well. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to put the lease into bankruptcy. I guess if she was doing a payoff plan or something, then it would eventually be paid off or something. But it's like, bummer for you. Sorry, But the fact of the matter is, when you make a contract with somebody and you say, I'm going to pay this much for this, whatever it is, and then you back out and you say, you know what, never mind. And the bankruptcy for people look at bankruptcy as it's my ability to sever all contracts that I've made, to say, I know I gave my word that I would pay this. And when you go to the grocery store or to the whatever store you go to, and you swipe your card and then you sign, you're promising with a signature that you're going to pay what you just swiped. You're going to pay that bill, that you're going to pay your financial institution that is paying it for you right now. You're going to pay them back. But when you declare bankruptcy, it's like saying, you know what, I know I signed my name to it and I agreed in writing that I'm going to pay it back, but I really didn't mean that. I lied and I don't care, and you just get over it. That's pretty much what you're saying when you declare bankruptcy. I'm not trying to beat on anybody that has. There's no unforgivable sin, but don't go into it presumptuously. If you're in financial trouble, don't go into bankruptcy. There are other ways to make it work. Call the people you owe money to and say, hey, I'm broke. Can I set up a basic, simple payment plan? I'll pay you what I can for now, and then in time, had times when I was really dumb financially, and not that I'm not dumb financially anymore, but I've had times when I was really dumb financially and racked up a bunch of what we called stupid debt that we owed, and we couldn't pay it back. And so they call me and they're like, when are you going to pay this? We got this or whatever. And I say, well, I'll tell you what, I can't afford any payment plan right now. Can I send you $10 a month until I can set up a payment plan? And they're like, sure. Send them $10 a month. Then they started reporting positive stuff on my credit. I was like, hey, I'm only sending them $10 a month. But it was still in delinquency and whatever. But those kind of things, at least you're doing something to try to, make a difference there, but or to show them that you actually do care about your word. When you said, I would do this, well, okay, I'm going to work toward it. Sometimes you do what you can basically, and then in time you can do a little more, and so you pay one off, and then now you can take what you were paying on that and pay on the other one. So we're going to get into a lot of that. Says here's the really disturbing fact: many Bible-believing Baptists are also in financial bondage. This state of affairs not only has its attendant material, emotional, and social consequences, but it also has an impact spiritually. Debt impairs our walk with the Lord, our ability to serve Him, and our testimony. It says to read the passage here, Luke chapter 16, verses 10 through 13. Says, He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. If therefore ye have been faithful in the righteous mammon, faithful. If you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust the true riches? And if ye have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? I need my little laser pointer again, but I washed it and destroyed it. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. So according to this passage, we cannot expect the Lord to commit to our trust the true riches if we have not been faithful in the area of finances. So the area of finances is the unrighteous mammon. This lesson concerns itself with achieving real financial freedom through the application of biblical principles. We're going to look at the aims here. We may not get through all of these, but we're going to at least introduce and then maybe go through the first one. We'll just see how far we get here. We started a little bit late. We might go just a little bit late to make it a little further in our study. So the aims of financial freedom on page 94 here, it says, what is real financial freedom? First, we must consider what it is not. It is not necessarily a matter of having more money. It's not having everything you could ever want. By the way, financial freedom is not just having more money. I personally could attest to that. Whether you have a little bit of money or a lot bit of money, you're not going to be financially free or financially fit or in good order if you aren't responsible with the money that you have. So it's not necessarily having more money. It's, a lot of people say, well, if I just made more money, then I would be debt free. Or if I just made more money, then I would this. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you can't handle a little bit of money the right way, then you can't handle a lot of money the right way. So no matter whether you have little or much, financial freedom isn't about having much. It's about doing right with what you do have. So there's my little sidebar there. So, and it's not having everything that you could ever want. It's not being insulated from the needs from having needs and experiencing and insulated from experiencing financial pressures or problems. No matter where you're at financially, you still have issues. Things happen. You can't always plan for everything. It's certainly not to be independent from God. Okay, so the goal for financial freedom isn't to be in a position where you have so much money that you don't need God. At the same time, though, we don't discourage people from producing value and thereby producing income to take care of their families. I don't see a problem with having stuff. But if that's what your life is about, your priorities are out of place. Whether we have all that we need or we don't have all that we need, we still need to depend on God and recognize that anything that we do have comes from Him anyways. So letter A, there's 3 goals. We're going to look at 3 goals here, which when achieved, define financial freedom. So I'm going to mention the 3 goals, and we'll start with letter A and see how far we can get. So the first goal. First goal is to be rich toward God. That's our motive. The second goal is to be content. We want to have the right measure of our faith. And then the third goal is to be debt-free, and that's dealing with our responsibilities. Okay? So goal number 1, being rich toward God. We look at Luke chapter 12, verses 15 through 21. I'm going to read through it real quick, and then we'll go through and answer the questions and deal with the other passages as well. So Luke chapter 12, verse 15 through 21, it says, "And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not of the abundance of the things which he possesseth. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. And he said, This will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up. Hey, you know what? I've got it right here too. Thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward God." So why does God bless us with material wealth and possessions? Obviously to keep body and soul together with the necessities of life. And Matthew 6 verses 31, 32 says, "Therefore take no thought, saying, What shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For after these things do all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that you have need of all these things." He says, and to provide for others in our family. So God gives us material wealth and possessions to feed ourselves, keep the body and soul together, to take care of the body and soul, but then also to take care of others, to be able to provide for others. So 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel." This is speaking, in context, is speaking about widows in his house. But I believe it applies secondarily to those of his own house in general as well. The passage there dealing with widows and how you handle widows and take care of widows and so forth. So, but that's what God's given us means for, is to take care of the basic needs and for our family. But ultimately to be a blessing to the work of the Lord as well. So number 1 here, it says in verse number 15, as we looked at it in the parable of the certain rich man, it was given, and there was a warning against the sin of what? Covetousness. Covetousness, yes. In verse number 21, Jesus contrasted the pursuit of earthly wealth with being rich toward God. Matthew 6 verses 19 and 20 says, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal." So we're instructed in this passage that we're to be more concerned about laying up treasures in heaven than accumulating earthly wealth. Number 4 here, Proverbs chapter 11, verse 24. He's talking about the very first part of it, but we'll look at it. It says, there is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. So God blesses the one that does what? Scatters, or is scattering, the scattering of wealth. God blesses that. Proverbs, the next verse, verse 25, it says, the liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. So God blesses the liberal soul. And of course, you have to make a note here because, when we talk about liberal, we think, oh, liberal, financial, or not financial, but we think like liberal, political liberal, right? And he says the difference between a true liberal and the political liberal is that the true liberal is generous with his own money, and the political liberal wants to be generous with everybody else's money. Amen. Yeah, go ahead if you want to tweet that or something, but don't quote me because I didn't say it. You can say Robert Sargent. And so the biblical liberal is liberal with his own stuff, and then the political liberal is liberal with, he wants to be liberal with your stuff, everybody else's stuff. He wants to take money from somebody else and pay my bills. Although I wouldn't mind a gift, but if he stole from that person without his permission, but even if he used laws to do so, still not right. So got that bunny, we'll leave him for later. Acts chapter 4 verses 34 through 37. This example we see of who? Barnabas. There we go. Or Joseph, if you want to use the other name. But this is how he used his blessings, his possessions, to be a blessing to the church of Jerusalem. It says, neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands and houses sold them and brought the prices of those things that were sold and laid them down at the apostles' feet, and distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. And Joseph, who by the apostles was surnamed Barnabas, which is being interpreted the son of consolation, a Levite, and of the country of Cyprus. Remember, we looked at Cyprus on Sunday night. You saw a little island, pretty cool little area. And he had some land there. Having land, sold it, and brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. Then we have 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 and 2. It says, moreover, brethren, we do you to wit, to know, the grace of God bestowed on the churches of Macedonia, how that in the great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their poverty, and their deep poverty abounded unto the riches of their liberality. So he asks the question here, is it possible to show liberality without having great wealth? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 15 and 16. Not boasting of things without our measure, that is, of other men's labors, but having hope, when your faith is increased, that ye shall be enlarged that we shall be enlarged by you according to our rule abundantly, to preach the gospel in the regions beyond you, and not to boast in another man's line of things made ready to your hand. So he says here, it says the giving of God's people enlarges or enhances or enables the gospel to be preached in the regions beyond, right? This is part of the point of them giving was they had some point of giving that was going to back to Jerusalem and all that. That was the Judean Relief Fund there that took place. But then they had also offerings that would go to the ministers, not just to take care of them while they were there, but to send them on to the next place. And so that would be, getting the gospel to the regions beyond. And then, according to 1 Timothy 6, verses 17 through 19, which says, "Charge them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life." So this passage here, it says that the Lord blesses us with uncertain riches so that we may be rich in good works. So he says here, what a blessing it is to have the ability to generously and joyfully, as Hebrews 10:34 says, for ye had compassion of me in my bonds, and took joyfully the spoiling of your goods, knowing in yourselves that ye have in heaven a better and an enduring substance. He says we take that, we have the ability to generously and joyfully respond to the financial needs of the Lord's work. On the other hand, financial bondage ruins our ability to effectively serve the Lord with our time and treasure. Again, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And so this goal, our motive, is to be rich toward God. We want to be rich toward God. Our motive ought to be for the purpose of being able to be a blessing, to generously provide for the Lord's work. And of course, along with that, our families will be provided for as well. But that's hard to do if we're in bondage financially. And debt is a big part of that. Let's see here. Do we want to go on to number 2? Maybe we'll save number 2 for next week. Unless somebody's really chomping at the bit. I think maybe we'll save number 2 for next week. Any questions or comments on that? On goal number 1? And what we're dealing with there so far? No questions? No comments? Nobody has anything to say? Arguments, disagreements, anything?